When I held the test result in my hand, I realized everything had changed. If you are watching this video, tell me where are you from, or what time is it for you? The paper felt heavier than a stone, even though it weighed almost nothing. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear that made them tremble. It was the truth I had spent months trying not to believe. My mother's voice kept echoing in my head. That baby isn't who you think. At first, I had laughed when she said that. I thought she was confused or angry, or just being protective like mothers are when they sense something before the rest of us do. But the way she looked at me that day, calm, sad, almost afraid, it made me realize she wasn't speaking out of madness. She was speaking out of guilt. It all began the night my sister Clara gave birth. She went into labor early, and Mom called me in a panic, insisting I come to the hospital right away. "You have to see him, Michael," she kept saying. "Before anything else, you need to see him." When I arrived, Clara was asleep. Mom stood by the nursery window, staring at a newborn wrapped in a soft blue blanket. "He's beautiful," I said, smiling. Mom didn't smile back. She whispered, "He's yours." I froze. I thought she was joking, maybe delirious from exhaustion. "What are you talking about?" I asked quietly. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Clara wouldn't tell you. She said it would destroy everything, but you deserve to know the truth." I stared at her, unable to breathe. "Mom, stop. That's Clara's baby." She turned toward me, her face pale. "No, Michael. He's yours." I drove home that night with my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every mile between the hospital and my house felt like a lifetime. I told myself she was wrong, that she'd misunderstood, that grief or stress had made her say something she didn't mean. But deep down, I knew something had cracked. For days, I couldn't eat. I couldn't even look at my sister's photos, her smiling face holding that tiny boy like he was a miracle. Every time I saw them, something inside me twisted. I started replaying old memories, conversations, glances, silences that hadn't made sense before. One memory stood out. The summer Clara left for college, we'd argued over something silly. Then she said something I'd never forgotten. "You'll never forgive me if I tell you," she whispered. Back then, I thought it was just guilt about leaving home. But now I knew better. Weeks passed before I had the courage to confront the thought that wouldn't leave me alone. What if Mom was right? What if the baby really was mine? I couldn't ask Clara, not without proof, and I couldn't tell anyone. So I did the only thing I could. I ordered a DNA kit online. It arrived in a small white box with instructions too simple for something that could destroy a life. I kept it hidden in my desk drawer for days. Every time I looked at it, my heart raced. Finally, one night, I opened it. I took a deep breath, swabbed my mouth, sealed the envelope, and drove to the post office like I was committing a crime. I told no one, not even Mom. That night, I sat in the dark and whispered, "Whatever the truth is, I can handle it." But the truth has a way of laughing at our confidence. The waiting was torture. Each day felt like walking barefoot on glass. Then, one morning, while drinking coffee, my phone buzzed. An email notification. "Your DNA results are ready." I hesitated for a full minute before opening it. Then I clicked, and there it was, a single line that changed everything. Probability of parentage, 99.97%. The baby, the one my sister called her son, was mine. The room spun. My chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. I dropped my phone. My coffee cup shattered. I slid down the kitchen wall and stared at nothing. My own mother had told me the truth, and I hadn't believed her. When I finally stood up, my reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. A man who'd been living in the wrong story his whole life. I drove straight to Mom's house. She was sitting on the porch, knitting like she did when she was waiting for bad news she already knew. "Mom," I said, my voice breaking. "You were right." She didn't flinch. She just kept her eyes on the horizon. "I wish I wasn't." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. "Why let me live like this?" "I tried, Michael," she said softly. "But she begged me not to. She said it would destroy you both." "She lied to both of us," I whispered. Mom sighed. "She lied to herself first. That's always the worst kind of lie." I sat beside her, my hands trembling. "What am I supposed to do now?" She placed her wrinkled hand over mine. "You be the man your father was. You tell the truth, even if it breaks the world for a while." That night I parked outside Clara's house. The windows glowed with warm light, and inside I could see her, holding the baby, humming softly, rocking him to sleep. My chest ached. I wanted to knock, to scream, to ask why, but I couldn't. The sight of her kissing that child's forehead, my child's forehead, silenced me. I sat there for nearly an hour, watching through the rain-streaked glass, wondering how love could be so cruelly disguised as betrayal. When I finally drove away, I didn't know whether I was the villain or the victim. All I knew was that the truth had found me, and it wasn't letting go. That night, I dreamt of my father. He was sitting in his old chair, reading the newspaper like he always did. When I tried to speak, he looked up and said only one thing: "Do right by what's yours." I woke up with tears running down my face. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I picked up the phone and called Clara. "We need to talk," I said quietly. Her voice trembled. "About what?" "About the baby." There was silence. Long, heavy silence. Then she whispered, "I was afraid you'd say that." That was the day the secrets began to crumble, and my family's truth, our ugly, beautiful, impossible truth, finally began to come out. The morning I went to see Clara, the sky was gray and heavy, like it already knew what was about to happen. Mom tried to stop me. She stood by the doorway, wringing her hands. "Michael," she said softly, "don't go there angry. Go there ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. She looked away. "For the kind of truth that doesn't have heroes." I drove without music, just the sound of tires over wet pavement and my heartbeat trying to outrun the past. When I reached Clara's house, she was outside watering her plants, pretending life was simple. When she saw me, the color drained from her face. "Michael," she said, startled. "You didn't call." "I couldn't," I said quietly. "I needed to see you." She hesitated, glancing at the window where the baby slept inside. "Mom told you, didn't she?" I nodded, and I confirmed it. Her lips parted, and for a moment she looked like a frightened child, instead of the sister who'd once told me how to face the world. "I never wanted you to find out like this," she whispered. "Not through a test." I stepped closer. "Then how? When he starts looking like me? When he starts asking questions? When your lie finally couldn't breathe anymore?" She covered her face and began to cry. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. It was just one mistake, one moment that never should have happened." I took a deep breath, fighting every word that wanted to burst out. "You call that a mistake? He's a life, Clara. He's my son." She sank onto the porch steps, her hands trembling. "I know," she said through tears. "I know. And that's what breaks me every morning. I look at him and I see your eyes. And I think, how can something born from such wrong feel so right? Her words hit me like a confession and a curse. I sat beside her. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared, she said. Scared of you, scared of Mom, scared of what people would say. I thought I could carry it alone. Mom appeared at the doorway then, quiet but strong, like a ghost made of truth. No one can carry a lie that heavy, Clara, she said. It crushes the soul before it kills the body. Clara looked up at her. I begged you to keep my secret. Mom nodded, tears glistening. And I did. But secrets rot. I couldn't watch it eat both of you. The three of us sat there, the air thick with every word we'd never said. The only sound was the baby crying inside. Clara wiped her face. He's hungry, she murmured and disappeared into the house. Mom turned to me. You can hate me if you want, she said. I don't, I replied. I hate that it took all of this for us to finally tell the truth. When Clara came back, she was holding the baby. She didn't look at me at first. She looked at Mom. He deserves peace, she said softly. We all do. Then she turned to me and placed the baby in my arms. He was lighter than I remembered, smaller, warm against my chest. His tiny fingers curled around the edge of my shirt. For a second, I couldn't breathe. All the anger, all the confusion. It melted the way snow melts when it touches sunlight. He's beautiful, I whispered. Clara nodded, her voice trembling. He should have known his father from the start. I looked up at her. And he will, from now on, she smiled through tears. Then promise me you'll stay. I never left, I said. I was just waiting to be told I could come home. Mom began to cry quietly behind us, the sound of decades of pain finally breaking open. I thought I'd lost both my children, she said. But maybe I just needed to see you both fall apart to realize you were already mending. That night I stayed for dinner. It was the first time we'd eaten together in months. Clara cooked in silence. Mom set the table and I rocked the baby by the window. The storm outside had passed, leaving the world smelling like wet earth and forgiveness. After dinner, Clara poured tea and sat across from me. Do you remember when Dad used to tell us that the truth has a voice? She asked. Yeah, I said. He said if you stop running, you can hear it. She smiled faintly. I think I finally heard it today. Mom reached out and held our hands. Promise me one thing, she said. Don't let this truth turn into punishment. Let it turn into purpose. I looked at the baby asleep in his chair and whispered, He's already purpose enough. That night I drove home, not as a victim, not as a brother betrayed, but as a father reborn. The stars were faint behind the clouds, but they were there, small, steady lights finding their way through darkness. When I walked into my house, I placed the DNA test in a drawer and locked it away. The truth didn't need a piece of paper anymore. It had a heartbeat, a name, and a future. After that dinner, silence lingered in our lives like the smell of rain after a storm. Quiet, clean, but reminding us of what had just fallen. Mom seemed lighter. She hummed while folding laundry again, the same lullaby she used to sing when we were little. Clara started writing in a notebook every night. And I learned how to hold a bottle and change diapers at 2 a.m. That tiny child was my redemption, even when the world didn't know it yet. We agreed to take small steps. No public announcements, no sudden explanations, just truth inside the walls. First, Mom said, let love rebuild the home before you show it the street. She was right. Some things need roots before they need witnesses. Every morning I'd drive to Clara's house. I'd feed the baby while she showered, then head to work. At lunch she'd send pictures, his half smile, his first roll over, his tiny fist gripping her finger. Each image stitched the torn parts of me a little tighter, till at night, guilt crept in. I'd think of how easily love had turned into a secret, and how quickly truth had turned into pain. Sometimes I'd sit on the porch with Mom, watching the wind move through her garden. "Why do people lie even when they love?" I asked. She sighed, because sometimes they love more than they trust. But lies, my son, are love's taxes. Everyone pays eventually. I nodded, holding her hand. "We're paying ours now." She smiled softly. "Then let it make you rich in wisdom, not poor in bitterness." Months passed and slowly word began to spread. Relatives noticed how close I'd grown to Clara's son. Neighbors whispered when they saw me pushing the stroller. At first it stung, but after a while I stopped caring. Truth, when lived quietly, doesn't need defending. One evening, Clara received a message from our cousin Nora. "I heard something. Is it true?" Clara looked at me, fear flickering in her eyes. I nodded. "Tell her. Let her hear it from you, not from gossip." She hesitated, then typed back, "Yes, and we're okay." For the first time, she didn't hide. A few days later, Nora came by. She didn't scold or judge. She brought baby clothes and homemade soup. "Family's messy," she said. "Yours just happened to make a bigger mess. Clean it, don't burn it." Clara laughed through tears. "We're trying." Nora winked. "Then keep trying." That night, after she left, I told Clara, maybe that's what forgiveness really is. The work of cleaning instead of burning. As the months turned into a year, the baby learned to walk. Mom called him Little Hope. She said, "He's proof that even mistakes can grow steady legs." We celebrated his first birthday quietly. Just the three of us. A single candle, a small cake, and the warmth of something finely mended. While he slept, Mom looked at me and whispered, "You know, I used to pray you'd both find peace before I left this world. Now I can stop praying and start thanking." I hugged her tightly. "You're not going anywhere." She smiled. "Not today, but someday, when I do, promise me you'll keep talking to each other. Don't let silence come back." I promised. Later, that night, I found Clara on the porch, looking at the stars. "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "I wish I'd been braver, but I don't wish he didn't exist. He's the best part of every wrong turn I took." I sat beside her. "Then we're the luckiest sinners alive." We both laughed, a tired, honest laugh. One afternoon, months later, I came home to find Mom sorting old photo albums. "Look," she said, pointing at a picture of us as children. 2 kids building a sandcastle while she sat nearby. "Even then, you two were building something together." I smiled. "We just didn't know how to keep it standing." She closed the album gently. "Now you do." We framed that photo and hung it above the baby's crib. When I lifted him up, his tiny hand reached toward it, touching our younger faces. It felt like the past blessing the present. One evening, Clara suggested something unexpected. "Let's tell Dad's old friends at church. Not for pity, just for peace." Mom agreed. The truth deserves daylight. So the following Sunday, we walked in together. Mom, Clara, the baby, and me. Whispered heads turned. The pastor, an old man with kind eyes, asked if we wanted to share something. Clara nodded and stepped forward. Her voice shook but didn't break. We've carried a truth in silence for too long. But this little boy is not a symbol of shame. He's a symbol of grace. We made mistakes, yes, but we also made amends. The room went still. Then, one by one, people began to clap softly. The pastor smiled. Redemption, he said, always starts with confession. Thank you for reminding us. Mom wept quietly beside me. I put my arm around her. It's over, I whispered. She shook her head. No, Michael. It's just beginning. That night, Clara and I sat in the living room while Mom rocked the baby to sleep. The air was warm and calm. For the first time, we didn't feel the need to explain or defend anything. The truth had taken years to be born, but when it finally arrived, it looked a lot like peace. A year later, the house was quieter. Mom's hair had turned completely silver, soft as the clouds she loved to watch through the kitchen window. She still hummed the same tune when she cooked, still watered her roses every morning. But there was a new gentleness in her silence, the kind that comes when a soul has finally finished its worry. Clara's little boy, our boy, was talking now. He called Mom Nana, called Clara Mama, and called me Mikey. Every time he said it, my heart bent a little more toward heaven, as if someone up there was taking attendance. One evening, Mom called us into the living room. A stack of old letters rested on her lap. I want to give you something, she said softly. My words, before I forget where I put them. Clara smiled. You're not forgetting anything. Mom chuckled. Maybe not yet, but memories are like laundry. The sooner you fold them, the fewer wrinkles you have later. She handed each of us an envelope. Don't open them until I'm gone. It's not a goodbye. It's just a bookmark for when the story changes. Chapters. We didn't argue. We just hugged her tighter than usual. Months passed quietly. Then one morning in early autumn, I walked into her room and found her sitting in her chair, eyes closed, hands folded around her rosary. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. The air was still. She had gone home. The house didn't cry. It whispered. Even the baby seemed to understand. He climbed onto her empty chair and patted the cushion, asking softly, Nana? Clara knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. She's with the angels now, sweetheart. He looked up. Can angels still bake cookies? Clara laughed through her tears. If they didn't before, they will now. We buried Mom under her favorite tree, the one that bloomed twice, a year even when it wasn't supposed to. The pastor said she'd lived a life of quiet revolutions, the kind that fix hearts instead of breaking rules. That night, Clara and I sat at the kitchen table. Between us lay 2 unopened envelopes. Ready, I whispered. She nodded. I opened mine first. The handwriting was wobbly but clear. My son, you searched for truth like a soldier, and it wounded you. But you carried it home instead of dropping it on the battlefield. That's how men become fathers, not by blood alone, but by bravery. When you forgive, you honor me. When you love without fear, you honor God. Keep the porch light on. I will always find my way back. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I just held the letter to my chest, feeling her voice in every heartbeat. Clara opened hers. Tears slid down her cheeks as she read. My girl, you mistook silence for strength. But the bravest sound a woman can make is the truth spoken in her own voice. Raise your son to speak it kindly. Love your brother loudly. And when guilt knocks, offer it tea. Then tell it to leave. We sat there for a long time, holding those letters like small pieces of heaven. Weeks later, we decided to fulfill one last wish. Mom had always said she wanted her roses to grow wild across the front, fenced so that every passerby would feel welcome. So we planted new vines together. The boy helped, patting soil with his little hands. "Will they come back next year?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "They'll come back every year, just like her love." When the first rose bloomed, its petals were pale pink, the exact shade of the dress Mom wore the day she told me. Truth doesn't destroy. It rearranges. I smiled at the memory. She'd been right about that, too. Life moved forward gently. The house became a home again, not spotless, not perfect, but full of laughter that didn't feel stolen anymore. Clara started volunteering at the hospital, where she'd given birth. I began writing letters to my son, for his future, the way Mom had written to us. And every evening when the sun dipped low, we'd sit on the porch with the boy between us. He'd look at the stars and ask, "Which one is Nana?" I'd point to the brightest one and say, "The one that never blinks." He'd wave, whispering, "Good night, Nana." A few years later, on his first day of school, he came running out of class holding a piece of paper. "Dad, look! I drew our family tree." I took the paper and smiled. There were 3 big hearts at the bottom and 1 shining star at the top. "She said we always need light," he explained. And that was the moment I realized the fine print of love isn't written in secrets or DNA or even letters left behind. It's written in the way we choose to keep forgiving. Again and again and again. I kissed the top of his head. "You did good, little man," I whispered. "You kept her light alive." The wind picked up then, carrying the scent of roses through the open door. Somewhere in that soft rustle, I could almost hear Mom's voice. "See? I told you. The truth doesn't destroy." And I smiled, because for once, she didn't need to remind me.